It's big, it's green, and it's actually a pretty nice bush plane. Hey there, I'm John. This is Two Brothers RC, and this is the Avios Grand Tundra 2. Hobbyking sent it over to demo for you today, and that's what I did. I beat the absolute hell out of this plane, so you could see whether it's worth owning. So let's dive into it and see how it stacks up to the no patent pending Two Brothers review system for mid-size bush planes. Let's start by giving you my actual opinion of the Grand Tundra. First up, it's a bit nose heavier than I prefer. Yes, I can hover it, but it takes a lot of work and an elevator to flap mix to keep it stable in the hover. It doesn't naturally like doing this. It wasn't designed to hover, but it will if you force it to. It's very maneuverable overall, and it feels more like a pseudo 3D plane than a bush plane, yet the suspension and wing placement make it a very solid bush plane. I know because I literally flew it through bushes. I think it's a very capable plane overall, and quite a bit of fun to fly, though I really don't like putting the bobby pins on the wing struts. That's someplace I feel like they could really improve. Diving into maneuverability first, the first thing that I check for with any bush plane is whether it can be flown with a neutrally balanced center of gravity. You can check through any vid on the subject and you'll see this is what I harp on the most. Despite my best efforts, running it with a SMC 2800 HV2 pack and adding 20 grams of weight to the tail, it still felt nose heavy to me. That doesn't mean it won't fly well, because you can clearly see that it does, basically anything I tell it to do, including wrap around itself like a pissed off snake, but it does make it more difficult to force it into a hover and keep it there, and makes it resist pitching up for 3-point landings on rougher terrain. This doesn't matter very much to every pilot, but it does matter to me, and is why I consider this an integral part of the bush plane metrics, regardless of how big the bush plane is. Taking off with the Grand Tundra is pretty simple. Just gun the throttle. It doesn't matter if you're flying from the backcountry, or if you're flying at a club field. All you need to do is push the left stick up, and it will take off. Of course, taking off is faster if you use flaps, especially in the backcountry where you might end up taking some grass with you on the rotation. Landing is also pretty easy. The suspension on the Grand Tundra handles rougher landings no problem. Though, slamming it in will lead to prop strikes. Ask me how I know. Of course, I deliberately tested the durability of this aircraft to see whether it really could hold up as a bush plane, and I think that it definitely does. If you're into bush flying, sometimes you're going to fly out of crappy areas you shouldn't be flying from to begin with. Thus, one might find oneself taking off vertically next to a forest that you're trying to avoid. The Grand Tundra has more than enough thrust to take off from rough areas, so it's definitely a good bush plane in my opinion. It's not going to fly in a forest, though, but that's not bush flying. That's forest flying, a completely different discipline. The stall speed of the Grand Tundra is pretty low, and it's not hard to recover from stalls. While I yanked it around to get it maneuvered to land in the back country, I did stall it occasionally and it did bite me, but not hard enough that some rudder work and thrust was unable to overcome it. Pro tip from me, avoid yanking it and it won't bite you, but that goes for most airplanes. The Grand Tundra 2 passes with a 4 out of 5 in this section. The Grand Tundra's flight time is what we'll look at next. Flying it like an aggressive 3D style plane, I was able to average 7 minutes with SMC 4400 LiPo batteries. Lots of full throttle flying mixed in with tumbling, low-level aerobatics, and general flying will easily hit 7 minutes if you're flying with voltage telemetry so you know exactly what the pack condition is while you fly. If you don't know how to set up voltage telemetry, reference our NX radio tutorial linked below, which covers it and applies to all Spectrum radios. Flying this like a bush plane, I was able to hit at least 9 minutes with small SMC 2800 HV2 packs, and yes, that did include some hovering in the backcountry too. In fact, all of this backcountry shooting was done with a single 2800 SMC HV2 pack. I'm actually very impressed that it flew as long as it did on that single pack, despite being about half the capacity of the 4400 LiPo from SMC. The Grand Tundra 2 earns a 5 out of 5 in this category. Moving on to landing gear, let's chat about the suspension and what I think. First, I'm gonna say that I'm not a fan of the rubber band suspension. I think that it should come with springs, but it does function with the rubber bands and it does do what hobbyking says it should do, which is bush plane stuff. That means it can handle being slammed into the ground, but you need to really wrap the rubber bands around the suspension for it to actually work properly. Otherwise, it'll do this. That's not a design flaw, that's just me being completely unfamiliar with rubber band suspension. Wrap the rubber band around the suspension 3 times and it'll be fine. Wrap it twice like I did originally and it won't have the stiffness needed to keep the plane upright on the ground. Alright, so let's talk metrics next. The wheels function, and they're really nice because they're inflatable, so they're squishy and absorb shock. Or at least they're just air-filled. Either way, they kick ass. The wheels are quite obviously attached to a suspension, and I say obviously because you've seen the suspension deform from my hard bush landings by this point. The gear setup does not cause bouncing at all, even if you have harder landings than you should. The gear absorbs the impacts really well, so you're most likely not going to find the Tundra popping back up into the air and crashing on a hard landing. The gear seems to require very little maintenance if you do what I said earlier and actually triple wrap the rubber bands around the suspension so that they're flexible but strong. Otherwise, you're going to have to fix it up a lot and it'll be irritating. The Grand Tundra scores a 5 out of 5 in this section despite my preference for springs instead of rubber bands. Before we move on, scroll down a little and hit that like button for me. If you're not already subscribed to Two Brothers RC, what are you waiting for? Get on it. And if you're not part of our Discord chat server yet, hop down to the description below to join up with 4,000 plus people and chat airplanes with us. Fit and finish is our next category. For an Avios plane, this actually looks pretty good. I know not everyone is a fan of green, but I personally prefer orange, green, or yellow on my model aircraft. Anything but blue. Not that I can't see it, but mostly because the color contrast looks better against blue sky. What I look for with bush planes is whether it has large control surfaces, whether the airframe arrived undamaged, whether the hinges are properly done or are made out of foam, whether it uses stickers or decals, and whether the battery gets airflow or not. Fortunately, it does have huge control surfaces. This is typical for bush planes. You need large surfaces to affect the aircraft's trajectory at low speeds. This means that you should be considering the idea of flying with maximum possible surface travel. If anyone tells you that their high rates are 10 millimeters up and 10 millimeters down, they're telling you that they don't have any meaningful control at low airspeeds. My suggestion to you is to consider the idea of getting comfortable with flying with full deflection at all times. You don't always have to use it, but it's good to have it there if you need it. 50% expo will tamp down the responsiveness in the center of the stick and provide plenty of maneuverability at all airspeeds. Just a gentle reminder, the slower you go, the more controlled deflection you need to produce any meaningful feedback in the aircraft. The foam arrived undamaged to my doorstep despite a UPS employee's best efforts to the contrary. I swear they enjoy playing kickball with my packages. The hinges are unfortunately all foam. Despite this, the foam hinges held up well to all sorts of aviation abuse. From ridiculous tumbles to literally dragging the elevator through bushes, I think they'll hold up for you, no problem. But whether they hold up or not is immaterial to the metric system, as we are looking for whether the hinges are plastic or gapless instead of foam. The Grand Tundra ships with decals instead of stickers. I will forever die on this hill. Stickers look like ass. Decals are form-fitting and show more of the molded detail in the foam. There is no situation where I would consider a sticker to be an acceptable substitute for a transparent decal or waterslide decal, and fortunately it does ship with decals, as I mentioned. The battery tray has a unique locking mechanism that allows you to pop the entire tray out for inspection and replacement, and the snoot of the Grand Tundra allows for plenty of airflow over it, so it won't overheat easily in summer. Thus, the Grand Tundra 2 scores a 4 out of 5 in this section. Our final checkpoint is avionics and lighting, and here I'm looking for whether the servos are all metal, whether the ESC overheats easily, if the airplane contains lighting, if the servos can be easily replaced, and if the motor mount is well designed. The servos are a mix of plastic and metal. It has metal servos in the tail and plastic servos on the wing. It did hold up to everything I forced it to do, but smaller bush planes come with metal servos, and this one should be no exception. Let's see metal servos going forward, Hobby King. Live up to your name, please. The ESC didn't have any overheating issues that I could spot, and it performed perfectly fine. However, there is something to note. The ESC leads to the motor are not shielded from the factory. Other models typically have the bullet connections between the ESC and motor shielded with tape so that they don't come apart easily and touch one another. This one did not come with tape, so the aerobatics I was doing caused one of the bullet connectors to loosen up enough that bare connections were starting to touch one another and make the motor sound like a gas engine that was tuned poorly. It still flew, but it definitely sounded terrible. Tape off the bullet connectors to insulate them, and this won't happen. It's got lighting, and it does appear to be correct. There is port and starboard lighting, a red LED in the base of the vertical stabilizer, and a blinking white LED on the belly. The servos in the tail can be easily replaced because they screw in place. The servos in the wings are glued in and thus cannot be easily replaced. If they fail, you've got some work ahead of you. You gotta pull them out of the wing somehow and re-glue another set of servos in place. This is not something that I appreciate doing, which is why we check for it. The motor mount appears to be very well designed. It didn't have any issues with multiple prop strikes it encountered while bush flying it in the backcountry. The Grand Tundra scores 3 out of 5 in this section. Before we move on, let's go ahead and check over the gyro gains that I used for AS3X Plus, which you'll find on screen right now. If you have any questions about this, hop on Discord via discord.gg/2brosrc and ask for help. Thus we move on to the final scoring, where we find that the Grand Tundra 2 scored a total of 21 out of a possible 25 on our bush plane metric system, which is good. It does have some areas it should improve in, and you can always fix most of those yourself if you buy this airplane, but 21 is definitely good since our scoring system is heavily weighted toward a minimum of 15 points for any airplane. A company really has to mess up for it to score 18 or less, so you can look at 21 out of 25 as though it's a B+. It brings some interesting flying to the bush world, but ultimately other planes fly just as good, if not better. It comes down to price, I think, and we should discuss that before I wrap up here. This is a 1.7 meter bird that clocks in currently at $369, which is pretty inexpensive for what it is. It's 6-cell capable, comes with lights, and a solid suspension system. It's hard to beat that price considering the closest 1.7 meter bush plane in performance is $110 more expensive at the time this video was posted. So it has a niche that it fills, and I think it's worth considering. If you want it, pick it up from the link in the description below to support what we do here at Two Brothers RC at no additional cost to yourself. And speaking of support, huge thanks goes out to our channel members on twobrosrc.com/supporters. A very special thanks, as always, goes out to our mega fans: Sarasota RC Squadron, Michael Smith, JR Man, Todd, N411X, Jeff Baker, and High Alpha Guto, along with our Ultra fan, TBRC fan. You guys kick so much ass. Be sure to swing by twobrosrc.com and pick up some of your favorite TBRC merch that you might have seen me wearing in this video. It's priced just above what it costs to make, so you guys can wear neat stuff without breaking your bank. Coming up soon will be the Hangar 9 Valiant 20cc. Horizon Hobby sent it over to me, and it's gonna pop next week. Yeah, I did say in a post that we're on a bi-weekly schedule going forward, but I'm also not gonna skip posting something this cool when Horizon asks me to post it, so stay tuned, because it's awesome.